In this video, I want to talk about something that I find to be extremely important, especially if you fish highly pressured bodies of water. If you fish, and there's a lot of other anglers that fish your waters, going to the extremes in bass fishing can really help you to catch more bass, whether you're fishing from the bank or from the boat. And in this video, I'm gonna talk all about that. Now, before we get into the video, this one's brought to you by my apparel company, Finn Fishing. I am running a sale for just another couple of days. It's the Independence sale, and everything on the website, except for my rod gloves, are 20% off. So sun shirts, bass hats, gloves, even the new American Bass t-shirt. This thing's only, I think, $16 right now. So if you guys would like to help support this channel, the best way to do so is shopping at Finn Fishing. I will leave some links down below in the comments and in the description. All right, let's talk about this, going to the extremes in bass fishing. Now, I've talked about this a little bit here and there on this channel and on my other channel, BassFishingHQ, before, but I really just kind of want to go in depth and also tell you just a few stories of where this has really helped me in the past. Now, the big thing about going to the extremes is really, if you think about it, in bass fishing, we all kind of read a lot of the same articles, and we all kind of watch a lot of the same videos, and we all kind of see a lot of the same things. We watch what's on Bassmaster or Major League Fishing. We see a lot of the same things, and therefore, as a whole, a lot of us bass fishermen, when we get to the body of water and we see certain circumstances or see certain situations out there on the water, we all kind of do similar things. And that's one, because the bass, you know, we know certain things that work under certain conditions, and therefore we all kind of pick up some of those same things. For example, maybe when you get to a body of water in the springtime and you're fishing, you know, windy and muddy water conditions, a lot of us are going to pick up a spinnerbait, right? And so with that being said, when you are fishing highly pressured bodies of water and everybody is doing similar things, going to the extremes, both on both sides of things, and I'll explain this in a minute, can really help you to catch a lot more fish. Now, there's two. I'm going to talk about a couple things right here, and one is your lure choice and location, which are basically two of the most important things in bass fishing. Now, if you think about it, when a lot of us go and decide on a certain lure, a lot of us are picking up the same lure. Like, for example, if I'm going to go out there and fish a chatterbait, I'm going to pick up a lot of times a 3/8 ounce, a 1/2 ounce chatterbait. They're all kind of the same exact size. There's a few trailers that I'm going to add on that. And a lot of anglers will do the exact same thing. Or maybe I'm going to go and I'm going to pick up a jig. You know, a lot of us pick up maybe a 1/2 ounce jig. Whatever it may be, when we pick up a lure, a lot of us kind of go with the same lure. And here's the thing, is that sometimes, for example, I'm going to use a spoon as an example. You know, if you're going out there and you're fishing a spoon, you might pick up a 4 or 5 inch spoon. That is probably where a lot of guys like to live. But when you're fishing highly pressured bodies of water and fish have seen a lot of the exact same bait, a lot of the exact same profile, a lot of the exact same size bait, sometimes going to the extreme ends of your lure will really help you to actually catch more fish. For example, instead of going with that 4 or 5 inch spoon, go with something that is a lot smaller. This right here is a little 1/8 ounce spoon. You can see it's probably about 1 inch, and it's vastly different in size than this one is. And I can guarantee you that I'm not going to guarantee, but I feel very confident that when you fish lakes that have a lot of pressure, sometimes downsizing like this can really help you to get a lot more bites, even catch bigger fish, because the bass have seen a lot of this, but they haven't always seen a lot of this. Now let's talk about the opposite side of things. You have this, you know, 1 inch spoon, you have kind of the spoon everyone throws. What about the big spoons? What about going complete opposite on the other side, going to the extreme? This is another good lure to throw, even in really highly pressured situations, because it is just so big. It is something that a lot of bass have not seen. So like I said, going to the extremes with your lure, and this can be any lure out there. For example, a number of years ago, you know, there's a lake near me, there's smallmouth to be caught in this lake, and for a while it seemed like everybody was throwing a Ned rig, a 2.75 inch Ned rig. And guess what? Everybody was throwing that bait. Now, one day I fished a tournament, and it was a very tough tournament, and I think we caught a handful of fish on a Ned rig that day, but most of them came on other lures. Now, when I got to the boat ramp that day, we barely scraped out a check, but the guys who ended up winning the tournament, they're actually good buddies of mine. And so, of course, you're gonna talk to your buddies. And he said that he was actually taking a Ned rig, a 2.75 inch Ned rig, and cutting it in half. So now that 2.75, which is already a very small bait, is literally an inch and a quarter in length, like a tiny little bait out there. And that is what he was able to catch quality fish on. So just think about that. Like even though it seems like that Ned rig is already small, he went to the extremes. He cut that bait in half. He went to the extremes, had a really small bait. Now, I've shared with you guys a story before where I fished a lake where a lot of people are throwing, you know, 4 and 6 inch worms, you know, and I actually went there one day in a tournament. I threw a big worm, an 10.5 inch, 11 inch worm, and actually outbeat a lot of guys. Again, I was on the extreme side. So this is something that I really truly believe can help you fishing highly pressured bodies of water. And sometimes it doesn't make sense, but it really can help you to get bites because you're simply showing the bass something that they haven't seen. And you can apply this to all the lures that you fish. Now, let's talk about, that's lures. Let's talk about location. Location is another thing that is an extreme. And like I said before with the lures, a lot of us are picking up the same things. When it comes to locations, a lot of us are kind of thinking the same thing when we're out there on the body of water. When we see certain things out there, we all kind of have the same mindset. Now, I've shared this story before, but I'm going to share it again because it's a perfect example of what I'm talking about when it comes to going to the extremes, is that a number of years ago, I was fishing the James River, and I got way up into this creek. And when I got up into this creek, I kind of came around this bend, and all of a sudden, the water jumped up to be about 1.5 feet deep. Okay, so it was very, very shallow. There was wood, like debris laying all over the place. And it just looked like a treacherous place. And I was about to turn around. But I was looking at my Google map and I'm like, man, there is so much water back there. Like that creek continued to go and wind all over the place. I'm like, there's gotta be some depth somewhere back there. And so it was last second, I decided, you know what, I'm not gonna turn around, I'm gonna push through. And I went over this like section of 1.5 foot water, 1 foot water that was like about 100 yards, I would say, maybe a little bit more, 100, 200 yards of this section. And all of a sudden it got to 2 feet and then it got to 3 foot. And I ended up finding water as deep as 8 feet deep past this really shallow section. Now, in this particular tournament that I was fishing, I didn't win the tournament. I didn't even cash a check. I finished in the top 30%, but I did it all in this area, and I had this entire area past this really shallow flat all to myself. And the reason being is that I saw a lot of other people in this creek, but they weren't going past that section that I just happened to be smart with one time. I'm not always that way, but I just thought, you know what, I can probably keep going and maybe get to some depth here. And I did, and I was able to go past that. I had a huge area where I was catching a lot of fish. Unfortunately, I just wasn't getting a ton of big bites, but I was catching a ton of fish. I had the whole area to myself. It was one of the most fun tournaments that I had fished. And so when it comes to locations out there on the water, sometimes think of the extremes where it's like everybody is going to fish similarly. Maybe if you fish further shallower and get farther back, you're going to find those little sweet spots, those little areas. One more story for you, the exact same thing. I was fishing another tournament on Lake Champlain, and this is where I failed, but another one of my friends did really well. And when you go to Lake Champlain, there's a ton of water out there. And I was fishing smallmouth. You know, I wasn't doing anything unique. I was fishing a drop shot just like everybody else, targeting kind of that 15 to, I'd say, 25-foot zone. The thing about it is there is a lot of structure in that 15 to 25-foot zone out there, and it seems like everybody at Champlain was fishing in that exact same area. But a buddy of mine was actually fishing in 45 to 50 foot of water. On the same lake, he was targeting an extreme. He was going way deeper than anybody else. He ended up cashing a check in that tournament, catching some really big smallmouth, and he said that he felt like he was one of the only guys that was fishing that deep. So guys, I just wanted to tell you how going to the extremes in bass fishing, especially in highly pressured situations, can really yield you some big time results. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, comment below. Don't forget to check out that fin fishing sale. And if you like this video, you might like my most recent video right here. All right, see you tomorrow.